This video contains content sponsored by John Wilson Blades and MK Blades. Opinions discussed in this video do not reflect the views of John Wilson or MK. Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Jennifer Kirk.
I'm Dave Leese, and back by popular demand for the ladies preview, we welcome Christine Brennan. Christine, welcome to the skating lesson.
Oh my God, you guys, it's great to be with you. And I actually, a little bit behind me here is the house that Tanya Harding built. So
we love Tanya. She built many houses back in her day.
She did. And as the journalist who got a chance and was fortunate enough to write Inside Edge, this is welcome to the home that Tanya helped build. So thank you, Tanya, wherever you are.
Our audience, Christine, they loved having you on. We had Christine on after the national championships to recap the event, and people fell in love with you. You're back by popular demand. Obviously a journalist for USA Today. And I want to start, before we jump into the ladies, I want to talk about the Meldonium saga drama that's going on, because you wrote an article about Maria Sharapova. Came out that some Russian skaters are taking this drug as well. What is your thought on this drug in figure skating, and that we won't see Tuktamisheva back at the World Championships defending her title? Came out and said that she was taking this drug as well.
Yeah, it's really troublesome, because I know there are people who say, oh, Maria Sharapova just didn't open an email, and maybe all of them just didn't get the memo, so to speak. But here's the deal, Jenny, that as you well know, as a former competitive skater yourself, the World Anti-Doping Agency and the individual federations, they give plenty of notice to any athlete, skaters, tennis players, track and field stars. This isn't dropped on people on New Year's Eve that, on January 1st, this is going to be banned. They get months and months, or at least weeks and weeks of notice. Sharapova, for example, received 4 emails from the Tennis Federation, in addition to one from WADA, December 22nd, and apparently she ignored them all. These are the most important emails in her career. It's just unconscionable and unfathomable that she would actually ignore these things. So, for example, with the skaters, again, they are getting word, they should be getting word from October on, that on January 1st, Meldonium is going to be banned. And of course, for many paying attention at home, this is the drug that the Soviets used for their soldiers when they were fighting in Afghanistan. It helps endurance, it increases metabolism, it keeps them awake. It's all those things that you want as an athlete. And so this idea that, perfect example, last year there was a survey and over 4,000 Russian athletes were tested. 724 tested positive for Meldonium. Now, Meldonium is known for, and you take it for angina and heart failure. What are the odds that all these young, vibrant 20-something athletes or teenagers are all suffering from heart failure? It's ridiculous.
The prime of their careers, yeah.
Exactly. We weren't born yesterday. So it is a real concern. It is performance enhancing. Maria Sharapova should be banned. Anyone who's taking it should be banned. It's a great concern. And if these skaters and other athletes were Americans or from a place where there's more freedom of speech and journalism, you could imagine the outcry over what in the world are you doing to these young people, and all in the name of trying to win medals. And it works, right? I mean, they win and then they're gone. And so it's incredibly troublesome. And it certainly tells you a lot about what's going on in Russia and other places, but especially Russia. And it's just a real black mark on any sport, especially figure skating.
Do you think
what's the update for Russian track and field athletes? I wanted to ask you on that, because I know that a lot of them have been banned. Are they still banned through the Olympics this summer? And is this something that we should be looking at in the whole Russian sports federation?
Absolutely. Yes and yes. Right now, Dave, they're banned through the Olympics, although we're not sure yet if there might be some leniency. It's a little hard to picture an Olympics in Rio without the Russian track and field team. It's hard. So what may well end up happening is some deal will be struck. Shocking, I know, a deal in the upper reaches of these federations and the International Olympic Committee. But I'm hoping they're banned. It's a lifetime achievement award for the Russians. Just get them out of there. And it's a shame for the individual athletes. But do you have rules or do you not have rules, right? And if you don't, if maybe we let the best chemist win, right? This is a conversation Phil Hirsch and Jeree Longman and Randy Harvey and all of us who covered the Olympics and traveling around, and we'd sit at midnight hanging out, chatting before the next day's Olympic events or whatever. And we'd say, maybe you just stop drug testing, right? Maybe you just, this was kind of the devil's advocate argument, that you can't catch everybody. There's performance enhancing properties to nutrition, to where you live, to altitude. There's so many things. Maybe you just say, as I said, let the best chemist win. Just let them go. And then if someone's running with 3 heads in the 100 meters, then that's what we decided upon. Now, personally, obviously, I am not for this. I do believe that we should drug test and kick these people out, kick Sharapova out, kick any figure skater out. Remember back in 2000 in Sydney, the Olympics in gymnastics, Andrea Radican was the Romanian girl who had taken a cold medicine, taken Sudafed. Now, again, that can be a performance enhancer, but they stripped her gold medal from her. You have to do that. I believe in that. But there's the other flip side of it. Just let as I said, just let them go crazy. Let it be the Wild West. I'm not for that, because you wonder what the consequences would be for all these young people as they get older. But clearly the Russians are playing by a whole different set of rules. I would kick them out for Rio, but I'm afraid that they may work some kind of deal and be back in time for the games.
Do you think the onus, sorry, Dave, do you think the onus falls on the athletes themselves? Because it seems like you're saying Sharapova should have opened the emails. She should have been in charge of what was going on in her body. Or is it the federation who's kind of giving these supplements, these drugs to these young athletes without the athletes knowing, just kind of saying, take here, this is going to make you do well. And I mean, who should really be at the end of the day responsible?
And that, Jenny, of course, is what was going on in East Germany back in the 1970s, that these athletes were told, take your vitamins. And then the vitamins turned out to be the worst steroids ever back in the day. And some of those women got cancer. Others, one woman, I think, was so far along in the testosterone that she actually became a man, went ahead with the surgery. And, I mean, it's just like.
She just went all the way? She was like, I'm already 70% there?
But what a tragedy. I mean, this was not her choice, right? I mean, this is what was just, right. That's what East Germany was doing in order to win those gold medals and win the medals races in the 70s. So, I mean, these are the things that just the black eye and more that sports has, the international sports, and those that have cheated to try to win as a country, systemic cheating on the national level. That's what's been going on. I think the blame is twofold. I mean, someone like Maria Sharapova will be 29 next month. She makes $30 million a year. She's got plenty of people to open her emails. She has to be responsible for what she's putting in her body. So she could say, I thought this was okay for the last 10 years. Well, fine. That doesn't fly as of January 1st. So I think it's both. I think when they're younger, when they get them started on these things, I think it's the system. Hey, we know the Soviets, now the Russian Figure Skating Federation. We know what they're willing to do. We saw what happened in 2002 in Salt Lake, the cheating, with the French and all of that for the French judging scandal. Of course, everyone remembers that. We know what these countries will do. Now, I know there are people who are going to watch this who don't live in the United States and say, oh, yeah, typical Americans, you didn't win, you're skaters, right? So it's like, okay, blame everyone else. Well, I'm here to say, and I think my record's pretty clear on going after Americans. 2 in particular come to mind, Lance Armstrong and Marion Jones, among many others. And of course, the baseball players, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds. So you can look it up, folks, and Google that and see. But I do think that there is no doubt that what is going on in some of these other countries would not be happening in the United States. I'm not saying American athletes aren't cheating. Oh, my God, they are. Some of them have been. Hopefully they're not now. Who knows? But this is national and systemic among some of our friends like the Russians. It is crystal clear when you've got over 700 athletes taking this drug. That's 17% out of over 4,000. That was the study that I referred to a little bit ago. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. And they know what they're doing and they're taking it. So, Jenny, I think it's a little of both. It starts with the federation. It starts with the National Olympic Organization to try to win medals. That's what it's all about. And then, obviously, as athletes get older, it's their responsibility, of course, to know what they're putting in their bodies.
Yeah, and a bunch of athletes who never train their full programs, but they've just been fine the last few years at the World Olympics. I'm just saying, it's been very interesting to see the rise. Do you look back at the Sochi Olympics now and question those results that we saw in figure skating?
Well, I questioned them at the time, and not necessarily for performance-enhancing drugs, but of course for all the shenanigans going on with the women's event and Satokova and how in the world she won with all of the conflicts of interest, which I reported on at the time. And I remember there was just, like there were a million hits on these 2 columns within a day. So obviously we struck a nerve. It's like, whoa, what's going on? But absolutely, I do. And, again, I am not saying, I don't want anyone to interpret this as saying that everyone's cheating in Russia. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that we have to be smart. If think about it, you guys. If you got a recall notice about your car, you would probably get to the dealer pretty quickly to get that taken care of. If you found out that a play that you were going to go to, all of a sudden all the stars walked out and you weren't going to see the people that you thought you were going to see, you'd probably ask for a refund. So we are consumers, right? I mean, I'm a journalist. You guys obviously are doing amazing. I love you guys and love everything about what you're doing with the sport of figure skating. You're the best. You're the best. But we're still consumers, right? Yeah. And I am just amazed at how people, and I think it goes to how much people want to love their heroes. You want to believe the best of all of these people. You want to believe the best of Peyton Manning. You want to believe the best of Steph Curry. You just want to, Michael Phelps and Missy Franklin and all of them. I mean, that's what you just want to believe. Okay, I get that. You're hopeful, and you want role models for your kids. I understand all of that. But as a consumer, you're paying all this money. You're buying the products. You're paying your cable bill, which of course goes to ESPN and all that. Really, you don't want to know what these people are doing. And if you find out that they're cheating, you really don't want to get them out of there. You want to poor Maria Sharapova, let's give her 6 months and let her come back or whatever. I don't understand that because it's really about the buyer beware situation. It's really about being a consumer and paying money for these things. And until we get to that point where people are just fed up the way they would be fed up with the auto companies, be fed up with some kind of sham or scandal in something they're paying for. We're not there yet with sports. And it's very interesting to me how we're not there yet. In some ways, we seem to be. Track and field certainly has come down several pegs in popularity than it used to be because of all the scandals in the sport. But in other ways, it's not there yet. And so it's a fascinating kind of conversation, which obviously we could go on for hours and may in Boston, right, when we all hang out.
Definitely. Well, let's talk about some of the women who will be in Boston because Sotnikova not being named to the team. Anna Pogorilaya, though, she placed 3rd at the Russian National Championships. She has been named to the team. And one of the things that really stands out about her, she does have the 3rd best, season's best overall of all the women heading into Boston. It was from an inflated event, so it's kind of hard to do that. But she's in the mix for that top 5. She takes these horrific falls, though. Literally like 360, rolling entire bodies. And Dave and I have commented on these falls in the past, and we've received a lot of backlash for that. Christine, in your opinion, is it okay to talk about a skater's fall? And have you ever seen a skater wipe out? I mean, it's masochistic. She's out to end herself or skating.
Jenny, no, I think it's absolutely fair game. And yes, obviously, if she's watching or people who love her, we apologize, right? I mean, it's like, okay, we get it. You're trying hard. Yeah. Well, and also she's obviously a great skater, one of the best in the world right now. But those falls, it looks like there's an invisible NFL linebacker who's out there on the ice who tackles her because she goes down so incredibly hard. And no, I do think it's fair game. We could do this. I don't think it's tasteless. I'm sure you'll hear from people who disagree. I remember Letitia Hubert. I don't know, Jenny, if you remember.
I trained with her.
She closed out 92 Olympics with such a performance.
I mean, there was one, what did she say? We were counting and there were like 6 falls. And then we went up to her. We said, hey, I think we fell 6 times. And she goes, no, it was 7, And the human Zamboni, and when they can laugh about it, and she could. That's why I feel comfortable, bringing these things up because she was so funny about it, and she understood. And Jenny, of course, so well as a skater, these things happen, right? Yeah. But what's amazing to me about these falls is she is down. I mean, she is down, and the art of the great skater, every skater is going to fall, clearly. Mm-hmm. The art of the great skater is falling, is to get up so quickly you almost go, whoa.
Did that even happen? Did I blink? Like, what's going on? Yeah.
Right. Do I need to look at the replay or something? And the most amazing ever in history, which was kind of not really a fall, but a jumping out of the rink, of course, was Midori Ito.
Her little hop back,
Right, 1991 Worlds, where she literally, she jumped out of the rink, of course, in the photographer's well, the camera well, and then didn't miss a beat and came jumping right back in and picked right up with her music. It was an extraordinary moment for her, and of course, one of the great skaters of all time. But compare that to what we're seeing, where Anna is just down and boom. And as I said, it's like she's flattened by an NFL player. It's like there's some imaginary defender out there, and she's going to have to clean that up. I mean, I don't see her being on the medal stand. I mean, you would have to have amazing amounts of disasters all over the place, and not just, well, she'd have to skate clean. And then I don't see her being in the mix on the podium. But I think fans might enjoy watching to see what happens next with her.
She's Phil's girl. Phil always he predicts she's always going to be on the podium. Well, so we'll have to talk to him about that next. But let's talk about some of the other Russian women as well, because Evgenia Medvedeva, coming in here with the highest season's best total, really has dominated the Grand Prix and then also winning Europeans. But this is her first time at this huge world stage, only second in Junior Worlds last year. Do you expect that she's going to walk away with this title? Is she the one to beat at this point?
Yeah, I think she is the one to beat. I'm not sure she's the best by any means, although I think she's got more of a quality to her, more than just the jumps, and more than, for me, frankly, is of the Russians I've seen over the last few years, other than Lipnitskaya, I think she's got the most to offer. I do think, I mean, she's so new, but she's run the gamut, right? Yeah. She's just literally, I mean, if she wins the Worlds, it's the Grand Slam of figure skating this year. She will have won everything. Of course, I think she's kind of signaled, hey, I'm here, when she beat Gracie at Skate America. And, then all of a sudden you're kind of like, okay, this girl is really someone to behold. I think what you're hoping for, if you're in this situation as one of these younger kids, is that it doesn't hit you.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You're not thinking about what you're doing. You just go and do it. That's the beauty of Tara Lipinski many, many years ago. Mm-hmm. It was Michelle Kwan 2 years before that at the Worlds in 96 in Edmonton, where you are just the one. You're skating beautifully. You got it. Nothing's going to get in your way. The minute you start thinking about it, or the minute you're the defending champ, and this goes in any sport, but certainly in figure skating.
Yeah.
Right. There's no pressure because you're not the defending champ of anything. And so, yeah, I think this is hers to lose. I would also say because of the panels that we'll see, I haven't really looked yet, but I know with all the Russian republics, and we know what happened in Sochi, the Russians, if you're Russian, skating while Russian, as we joke, if you've got a chance. You've absolutely got a better chance. You've got a bit of an edge. I don't think, again, this is a news flash. You've got a bit more of a chance just because of the way the panels are going to go. And the fact that the Russians just seem to dominate not only in skating right now, but also the judging panels, which is probably much more important. So, I think so. I know we'll talk about Gracie and Ashley. Mm-hmm. I really would hope there's an opening for them to win this thing, but the odds are probably not.
Mm.
Do you think that there are weaknesses to her skating? Do you feel, to me, I don't find her to be the most mature skater out there, but I feel like when you have a consistent season, the marks tend to go up and up and up and up because the judges can bank on you. Do you see that happening with her a bit?
Oh, absolutely. She got a 10, right, at Europeans, 110. And let's see where that judge was from. Shocking. Can we guess? Can we imagine?
Right.
Yeah. But no, it happens. And we've seen it, for example, with Polina, where she is marked for under-rotating and gets dinged over and over again. There's almost this perception, right? So absolutely, you start building, you start having the kind of season she's had, and the judges are just going to feel like, especially the ones in love from Russia, and they start to swell with pride, and they're like, hey, that's our girl, and we're going for it. And so it's fascinating how we see it. It shouldn't happen that way, you guys. It should be just solid judging every time, but I think that's the case. And again, for my purposes, I am not all about the little girl skating. I'm not. I would have had Karolina or Yuna Kim winning the Olympic gold medal, not Satokova. No way. But, again, obviously I'm not judging, but that's what you'll get from me. I like the total package that, say, someone like Gracie would give us, or Ashley, if everything goes great for her. I think that's it. Or, Satoko, of course, from Japan. That's more what I would go for. But again, I'm a realist, and we're in the world where the Russians just are dominating this thing right now, not only on the ice, but in the judging panels. And that's why I think it's theirs. I really do. And I think we could see 2 Russians. I hope not, but I think we could see 2 Russians on the podium if everything goes great for them and if the Americans have some trouble.
Well, you talk about.
I do have to point out just there is no American judge on the panel. There's no Russian judge on the panel or Belarusian, but there is a Ukrainian judge on the panel. So they do have an advantage there going into.
Yeah. Well, and then also they're friends, so to speak, right? And hey, you know what? I want to say, I know I'm sounding really cynical. I've just covered this sport since 1988.
You know how it works, yeah.
Right. Right. Now, let's just be honest about this. Going back in history, Kristi Yamaguchi won the Olympic gold medal in 1992 without a U.S. judge on the panel. Mm-hmm. Sometimes great skating and good skating. In that case, she got, Midori blew it and had some problems. So, Kristi certainly had the door open for her in Albertville in 92. Sometimes things, hopefully the right person wins most of the time. Anyway, and I know you'll have people tell you that. I'm a realist, and I think we have to just, say, look at what we're seeing in this sport, the way the Russians are in control, and the rest of the world is kind of just sitting there, watching it happen, kind of powerless. In terms of all ISU leadership, in terms of judging panels, in terms of technical panels. I mean, on and on it goes. We're just seeing it over and over again.
Well, you spoke a little bit about little girl skating, and before we move on to Satoko and some of the Americans, we have to talk about Elena Radionova, because I think last season she really fit that mold of the little jumping being the little Tara Lipinski. This year she's grown a bit, but I don't think her skating has really grown and matured with her body. We saw some inconsistency. She seems to be always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Third at Worlds last year, second again at Europeans, or here this season. Do you think she could be a surprise upset winner? And do you think she's also, conversely, is she vulnerable to one of the Americans, or conceivably both of the Americans, kicking her off a potential podium position?
Oh, I think so. Again, I mean, I know we'll get to Gracie and Ashley and Polina. I don't want to forget her too, but they have to be clean. And which we certainly didn't see at the U.S. Nationals, and then Gracie went on to 4 continents, and oh my goodness, So I mean, they just have to rise. They have to bring their A game big time. But absolutely, as I said, I think 2 Russians could be on. If everything falls correctly for the Russians, I think 2 Russians could be on the panel. I mean, on the podium. I'm not quite sure what to make of her, because. Again, I think she is, you've nailed it. She was kind of like the it girl last year, and the way these Russians are just coming year after year. I mean, the lifespan, the career span of a Russian is like now less than the entire running of the movie Dr. Zhivago or something, I mean, it's just, we went through, and we should have seen this as a bit of a telltale sign when we went through the Sochi Olympics, and they literally changed Russians halfway through.
Right.
You went from, right?
Yes.
I mean, you went from Lipnitskaya, who's, okay, she's the it girl, and then, oh no, halfway
literally
through,
days later, yeah.
Right.
New one.
I mean, they go through these skaters so quickly, and this would just not fly in the United States. I mean, we would be, what are we doing to our young women? What is this? What is this? This is nonsense. It's not the way you treat people. But let's throw that all out the window. And again, I'd say that U.S. would feel that way. Canada would feel that way. Japan, a lot of places, like Western Europe would feel that way. You just don't do that to kids. What are we doing to them? What kind of harm are they causing, them psychologically? We know Lipnitskaya has been through a lot. Sotnikova, will we ever see her again other than at some, the Sarajevo Open or whatever? I mean, it's like, it's funny, but it's not funny, right? Because
these are their lives.
These are young people, and they're just being thrown on the discard pile after they get a medal. Okay, thanks, see ya, and here's another one. So I think for almost any one of these Russians, it's very likely that we may see another 1 or 2 will last, and then we may see others in the next couple of years, and we may never. Maybe this whole group we're talking about now, maybe I don't know. Do they go to the Olympics in Pyeongchang in 2018, or are there all new Russians? It's really interesting. If I wanted to stop my life and go over there and work on a book or documentary, it would be fascinating, absolutely fascinating, that philosophy and the psychology of this and the damage that's being done to these young women. Now they would say, heck, they're getting a chance to go around the world and be in the limelight, make some money. Okay. But I just think it sounds so detrimental to them as human beings, even as Russia is reaping the rewards with victory after victory.
Yeah, I have to think, if you look back at her performance at Europeans, she's gotten taller, and a lot of her jumps, though they were landed, were very questionable, and they were a little bit of sketchy, shaky landings. So I do have her as the vulnerable one. I think that if someone is going to open the door, I don't think it's going to be Medvedeva or Miyahara for Gracie or Ashley. So I would really look to Radionova to be the vulnerable one in the medal rostrum. But thinking about women who have come back, Asada made a comeback this season. She did do 4 continents. She was last at the Grand Prix final. Earlier in the season, we did see her looking strong. So how important do you think in her career is that she win or at least medal at this event?
Oh, you know what? I'm a fan of Mao's. I'm a fan of her stick-to-itiveness. I'm a fan of the triple axel that she has tried and been able to land. I'm thinking back to Vancouver even and how amazing she was. She's 25 years old now. I mean, wow. We think Ashley's old and Ashley's a year younger than Mao. And I say that as just total respect. They're clearly not old in life by any means. I'm old. They're not old.
No, you're not old, Christine. It's about energy.
I try to act. I'm trying to act your age, you guys. But no, I think Mao is just one of the greats. There is nothing that would be better for the sport of figure skating than for Mao to be able to hang on through 2018 and win another medal at the Olympic Games. I mean, that would be so deserved. She's had a great history at Worlds. Obviously, she's done very, very well. And the Japanese, I'll tell you, I mean, they just, where the Russians seem to be now the new it girls, so to speak. The Japanese have just been so dominant at Worlds over the last, 10, 12 years or so. It's just extraordinary. And it's to the great credit of the staying power of the Japanese skaters. And you think of someone like Fumi Saguri, who didn't win a world title, but my gosh, I mean, she was around forever. And so there's real strength there and conviction and love of the sport. And that's nice to see. And Mao's gone through a lot. And I think when you get to be a certain age, like Ashley, when we hear it in her voice and her comments about how much it means to her and how she appreciates it, clearly Mao is in that same category. Love to see her medal. I'm not going to rely on that to happen, but I'd love to see her be in the mix where she can come out and have a great long. Of course, in Sochi, she had the disastrous short, so that by the time she had a decent, good long, she was totally out of it. And that's too bad. And I think Mao deserves that. And as I said, it's probably too much to wish for another 2 years from now, but this one would be great. It's great to see her back and a real class act and an ambassador for the sport when the sport absolutely needs these kinds of wonderful veterans to be around and to continue to do great things.
Completely agree. And I think where Mao struggles is the consistency. Conversely, her countrywoman, Satoko Miyahara, that's really her money, because Dave and I noted watching her in practices at Skate America, her technique is not the best. She really rushes the takeoff of her flip and lets, doesn't always get to the top of her toe pick, but competition after competition, she comes out and she does really, really great long programs. Do you think she could be a surprise winner, or does she need to bank on mistakes by some of the Russian women and perhaps American women?
Yeah, I would love to see her win. I mean, if it's not going to be Gracie or Ashley, and again, I'm not cheering for the people, I'm cheering for the story. I mean, it's so, what a thought it would be if an American woman wins in Boston. And after all these, 10 years after Kimmy did it in Calgary at the Worlds, Kimmy Meisner, of course, was the last American woman to win Worlds. And she and Sasha were the last to medal. And that was 2006. I know all your viewers know this, but it's extraordinary that we're talking that long of a medal drought for the American women. But absolutely, I think that she's excellent. I mean, I agree. Listen, everyone has issues, but give me that. That is skating to me. I look at her and I see Yuka Sato. I see a Fumi Saguri. I see that fluidity, that pure joy of skating, that it's just beautiful skating. Now, I realize, and I can hear people already screaming, yes, but there's things, it's not just that. You got to rack up the points. You got to do this and that. And we know that, if you backload it, then you're going to get a lot more points, of course. But there's something just beautiful about watching her skate. And so because she won the silver last year at Worlds, I think she would be primed if there's a mistake. And as much as I think we here as Americans are talking about Gracie or Ashley, I think that the judges may say, whoa, we've got the world silver medalist. If the Russians make mistakes, if it gets to them, all of a sudden you've got her sitting there. And I think she could easily be the world champion. I think she's certainly in the right spot if there's some mistakes down the road, for sure.
Something really needs to be said for that competitive grit. I don't think it's rewarded enough, particularly now as we transition to the American women. The fact that she can go out there time and time again as an athlete, that is so hard, that she is always so rock solid and trained. And Dave and I talk about it a lot. She's like a robot, but still draws you in, unlike someone who's just, going through the technical motions. So I agree. I would like to see her do very well. But Dave, let's talk about
I was just going to say, though, keep in mind that the judges have shown over and over again that they're not, when you're giving, and I understand we don't need to relitigate the 2014 Olympics, but when you're giving Satoko the gold medal and you're watching those landings and you're watching the fact that the footwork doesn't go all the way across the ice, we have seen that what we may look at and what we think is beautiful skating or should be rewarded may not be what the judges are saying. And I hope I'm wrong. I would love to be proved wrong at this Worlds in Boston.
Well, speaking of the Worlds in Boston, it does look like it could come down to the American ladies and how they're going to do. And there's been so much talk, obviously, that American has not medaled since 2006. How important do you think it is for the future of figure skating in the U.S. that there are medalists and potential medalists going into the Olympics in Sochi, so that those preview articles, when everyone starts focusing on figure skating, again, are that there are contenders and not about the drought?
Yeah, I think they just want to get it over with, frankly. When I was on a conference calls the other day with Gracie and Ashley, Polina's hasn't happened yet, but and listening to them, and I asked both of them about the drought and about trying to learn from it, and they're sick of being asked about it. I'm sick of asking the questions. I know my colleagues are as well, and they're sick of answering them. And does it change the TV ratings for the sport? Probably not. Does it get a whole new group of fans interested? Not necessarily. If Gracie or Ashley or Polina wins the bronze or the silver, that's nice. It's really good. It's great for them. It's a great achievement in this very competitive time in the sport where these Russians just, again, another day, another Russian. It's just, that's hard. That's hard to compete against, especially if they're little girls and younger girls and they're packaged to look good, or they are good, let's give them that. And they can just do all this kind of stuff. And then they're gone. The staying power is what I love. And the staying power. And we've got 3 young women going to Worlds. All 3 of them have staying power. They have been around a while. Obviously, Ashley's the oldest, and then Gracie's 4 years younger, and then Polina's coming along basically 4 years after that, which is kind of interesting. Kind of 3 generations all in one, but they've been around a while. And I think it would just be fantastic. Now, if one of them, and the most likely would be Gracie, a couple of thoughts on this, but if one of them can win the gold, which is certainly not outside the realm of possibility, then I do think, even though it's a Summer Olympic year, and even though it's right at the end of March Madness for the men and the women, so everyone's kind of preoccupied with basketball, I really do think that can cut through the noise and make some, you've got world champion Gracie Gold or world champion Ashley Wagner, that would be a big deal. And in Boston, on home ice, I do think that would resonate beyond just the Olympic world, beyond the rings, beyond the sequin heads. And I think that would be a really good thing. And I was going to say, and I know we want to talk more about each individual one, if we could take Gracie Gold's talent and Ashley Wagner's determination and fight and put them into one person, there's your world champion, multiple world champion, and probably an Olympic medalist in Sochi, and who knows what for 2018. And that's what's interesting, because they're really, if you could just pull a little bit out of each one, amazing. And unfortunately, we're just not seeing it with Gracie, this uncertainty that she has, whereas Ashley's got the drive and the determination and the fight, but isn't quite the talent. All credit to Ashley to get 3-time national champ and all those great Grand Prix finals that she's had. Without that incredible talent of someone like a Gracie Gold.
Will you talk about Ash? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to go into Gracie, but yeah, Jenny, go.
I was just going to say a quick question about Ashley. You talk about how she has that fight, yet we saw her struggle in the short program at Nationals, Gracie as well. So how much is it going to come down to the short program in Boston? Is that really the event of the 2 to watch? Because last season at Worlds, both of them struggling in the short program. How important is that?
Absolutely, Jenny. To have any chance to win a medal, Gracie Gold needs to skate clean in the short. She cannot be popping stuff and having the these moments, these brain fluxes or whatever the heck's going on. Flummoxed, great word. She said she was flummoxed. Great quotes, but none of that. She has to just go out and nail it. And Ashley does too. So to have a chance to win a medal, and this is not earth-shaking, this is not, stop the press's news, but absolutely 100%. Ashley Wagner has to skate clean to have a shot at the podium. Gracie Gold has to skate clean to have a shot at the podium. And I'd say the same about Polina as well. And of course, she was the only one to be clean at the Nationals. And yet Gracie beat her with not being clean. So that tells you what U.S. judges think, which is what I think times 5 what the international judges. Yeah, unfortunately for Polina. But they have to. A mistake in the short, like we saw at Nationals in St. Paul, and you just, first of all, I can just picture the building, can't you? And the sound in the building and the disappointment. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, they just gotta nail it, and they know it. Gracie is talking about at this conference call about doing simple better. I mean, it felt like when she was talking to us on the conference call, she might've been lying on a couch and talking to a psychologist or psychiatrist, and I mean that, she's got the lines, and Frank Carroll, of course, has given her that, we're going to just break it down here and just do simple better. And we asked her, should she have gone to 4 continents, this is Gracie? And she said, that's up for debate right now. That was a big mistake. I mean, it's easy for me to say that, but that's what I am, as a journalist, we're here to do this. So again, I understand that they make the decision at the moment. I respect that, but big mistake, because talk about a devastating thing. She has that great long program in St. Paul at Nationals. Great. She's now just the wind in her sails, and back here she goes. And then she just goes and bombs. I mean, what is that? I mean, Michelle Kwan never did that. Yeah. Tara Lipinski never did that. Nancy Kerrigan bombed at the Worlds, yes, once in 93, but was 5th. I mean, and granted, different systems. I understand everything's changed a little bit, a lot actually, but how is that possible for Gracie? And so I'd love to say I have confidence in her based on that long program in St. Paul, where she just came back and nailed it. But after that 4 continents thing, and listening to her and trying to psych herself up, I just, I hope I'm wrong, but it's really hard to envision this Gracie that we're listening to now. It's really hard to envision her skating a clean short and a clean long under that pressure on home ice, even though she did great on that ice in Boston at the Nationals in 2014. It
was a completely different situation, too, heading into that Nationals. You have to remember, that as an athlete, when you have such a horrific outing, I completely agree with you, Christine. I don't understand how Dave and I can watch her in practice. She is 2 clean long programs in one day, so on, and yet it's a completely different skater when she goes out at something like 4 continents, where, what was her quote there, Dave? She said she was just happy to pull in. I've never heard a skater
She's happy to rotate. I know that in her defense, I know that before they left, after she made that decision, she didn't feel in shape to go. Obviously, there's a down after Nationals, and skating, you have to be so primed. There have been reports that she's doing well. They had a test skate a couple of weeks ago where she skated very well. And conversely, we've been hearing that Ashley has been injured. She's had a quad strain. She also had a bad fall at a show in Canada. She hasn't been doing any full long programs yet from someone that's been seeing her training, although she has looked good in sections. And speaking of the psychology of going back to Boston, this is, of course, where Ashley was 4th in 2014 when they made the Olympic selection. How do you think that weighs on her, Christine?
We asked her that, actually. I asked her if she was looking forward to kind of taking the demons out of that building, and she said absolutely yes, as only Ashley would. I mean, Ashley's just first of all, such an amazing talker and great quote, and is so smart and thinks these things through, and of course is now turning it understandably towards an advantage, that she just wants to go in there and show everyone that wasn't, the Ashley Wagner, and love. And of course, whether it's the same people or not, but the building, whatever. Now, she did say she'd already been there for an event to kind of promote the Worlds coming up right after Nationals. She went there. So she's actually been in the TD Garden since the debacle back in 2014, although when she was rightly put on the Olympic team, absolutely, based on her resume. They had to, based on their rules. That was, the way the rules were written. And I think it was the right move to make. But a tough call, of course. And so she's been back in the building. So when she walks in the first time in a week or so, she's going to be, she's been there. It won't be the first time since 2014. But those bad memories, clearly, you don't want those to come back. I will say this, if Ashley, I agree. I've heard some things about Ashley. I don't know. Certainly you hope that any athlete will be at their best, at his or her best at the moment that it matters the most. So let's, for the sake of this conversation, say she'll be healthy. She'll be okay. I could see that actually being a motivating factor for Ashley, because again, she seems to do much better when people have counted her out. And I mentioned that to her as well on the conference call. The idea that, people are assuming, that you weren't any good, or like she was third at nationals. Is that a positive? And for Ashley Wagner, that is a positive. She loves to come back roaring from behind. And so again, whatever an athlete needs or wants to use in their brain to give them the momentum and the impetus to do well, that's great. And that's a part of any sport, any time. But I think Ashley is, it's funny. I can almost see Ashley just skating lights out if she's healthy. And that'll be interesting because she's going to need, unfortunately, she will need probably someone to screw up. And I think, knowing it's women's skating, someone will screw up. Whereas Gracie, I think, can do it on her own. I don't think Gracie needs any help. And but that's, going back to Gracie and her brain, that is a tough one. And I'm sure you guys heard the quote where she said, I asked the question of, does it help that Frank has coached so many great skaters? Does it help her, right? And I mentioned Michelle Kwan, Evan Lysacek, to name two, and how Frank gets people prepared. And then that's when Gracie called Michelle she's like the every other year girl. And every other year girl, meaning we figured worlds. And yes, Michelle won worlds every other year. The other year, though, she was always like the silver medalist at worlds. And of course, two-time Olympic champion. And Phil Hirsch and I were talking about that, and Phil blogged about it. And I certainly plan to write about it at when we can focus at USA Today on some columns when I'm at Worlds. And Phil had the great line, that Gracie's the every other program girl.
That is very true.
At this point. And this is not, by the way, to bash Gracie.
No.
I like Gracie. I like her. But where did that quote come from? I mean, holy smokes, win some worlds, win, win.
And then you can talk, medal. Honey. Yeah.
And then, and even then, to call
Don't
Michelle
diss
Kwan
the queen.
That's a quote for the ages right there. I'm guessing Gracie would take that back if she could, because she is nowhere near where Michelle was. Whereas then contrast it with Ashley, who an hour later on her conference call, again, talking to her about these issues, she said, well, in no way am I Michelle Kwan. I'm not, I'm not Michelle Kwan. Yeah. So the complete opposite is understanding, which makes sense. Ashley is much more that way, much more understanding the history of it. And I think Gracie just wants to go and just be this fierce competitor. So she's probably coming up with anything in her brain to say those things. But an unfortunate comment by Gracie for sure.
Yeah, the one thing about Gracie I have to say is I saw that quote, and of course, you have the willingness to pounce. The one thing I've noticed in Gracie's interviews is that she's reluctant to take ownership of her mistakes at times. She still talks about the fact that she only doubled a jump at Skate America, but unfortunately under the rules now, a double is worth 0 points. So that double is far worse than Gracie likes to characterize it. And you think she's trying to come up with something to say, but of all of the quotes to say, there's just don't go there with Michelle Kwan. But speaking of quote machines, Polina's known for being very assertive. We have seen issues in her packaging in the past. What do you make of Polina?
Will we see a new dress here in the long program?
I looked this up, you guys, and to make sure I was correct. So Polina is 17. She's about to turn 18.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Michelle was 15 in the fall of 95, going into the 96 year where she won her first world title. And that's when we saw her. In fact, I was at Skate America in Detroit. And all of a sudden, you see the skater on the ice in the warm-up, and I'm kind of like, who is that? That's Michelle. That was Salome. And that's when Frank Carroll and Lori Nickel decided it was time for Michelle to be wearing makeup and looking more adult and more mature. She was 15. Now, these are questions for any parent. I get it. What are you going to do with your daughter, with your son, your child, and any number of issues? So maybe for Polina and her team Polina, maybe they just don't want to go there yet. But you've made the choice to be a figure skater. and you know what the rules are of the game you're playing. And so I just do not understand why Polina, who is now, I guess, 2 years younger, or 2 years older, excuse me, maybe closer to 2.5 years older than Michelle when she became Salome as a 15-year-old, to turn 16 almost 9 months later. When Michelle made that change, and Danny Kwan was not happy about that. Frank and Lori said, hey, you got to do this. And Danny was like, no, I don't want my daughter wearing makeup. Well, guess what? She's going to wear makeup. And they did that. And of course, it changed the course of Michelle's career and her life by being so great that year and winning worlds, and then being the Michelle Kwan that we know for a decade, basically. And Polina's got to make that move. You just got to make that move. So I don't understand what they're doing and why they're waiting, because the judges will notice that. They are noticing that. And she's just not getting the benefit of the doubt. And when you tell people that she's almost 18, casual fans of the sport, as I've had those conversations, where they go, really? She's almost 18? They thought she was 15 or 14. And that's not good in this sport, where image is everything and where the judges care so much about that. So I feel very strongly that they've got to make that change. And again, I think Polina, we saw it at National. She was clean. She was perfect. She did not win. She lost to someone who had a huge mistake in the short program. So I don't want to say there's no way of anything, but in this case, Polina is just not in the mix for the medals, I don't think, unless the bottom falls out of everyone, which we've seen every now and then.
Well, it could happen.
Everyone's terrible. If everyone's terrible, then Polina can sneak in. This is no disrespect for Polina. It's the fact that there's the pecking order, and they look at gold, and they know Wagner so well from those Grand Prix finals in particular, that I think that's why Polina need to make some big changes for next year. And I'm going to guess that they will do that.
Well, David,
it's interesting. She actually looks mature in the short program, and her Moonlight Sonata, she looked great in the short program at Nationals. And everything that they did right goes wrong in that free skate. So it's really, I'm flummoxed, as Gracie Gold was.
We're all flummoxed, which is why we keep watching, right?
Well, David, Christine, as we start to wrap things up, I want to hear your predictions, though, for the podium as we head into Boston, and also your hashtag MK moment of the season. What was the one moment that stood out as we head into the World Championships thus far this season?
That's good. We're talking about for any event?
Any event, any discipline.
Yeah, well, can I pick the mixed zone and Gracie saying flummoxed?
There we go.
I mean,
word of the show, flummoxed.
Right,
yes.
Right. You literally, you just don't hear that word. I mean, even Tanya, Nancy, we never heard that word there. So, I am going to go with Satoko. I think is going to win. I do. I think I'll go with, I want to say Gracie, but I don't know. So I will say Medvedev would be second, and then I'll say Gracie third. That's what I'll go with.
Dave?
Well, after the Junior Worlds, where we didn't see the Russians do well in the free skate, and we saw the women pull out, I am going to say that Satoko will win, Gracie will be second, and Medvedeva third, with Ashley Wagner fourth. And I have to say my moment of the season would be Gracie's free skate at Nationals and Ashley's free skate at the Grand Prix final. How about you, Jenny?
So I'm going to go with Medvedeva winning. I think she's just going to carry that momentum from earlier in the season. Satoko second, and I'm going to go with Ashley third. I can't count on Gracie at this point, unfortunately. I wish I could, but she makes me very nervous. And my hashtag MK moment of the season was actually from practice. That first practice day we were at in Skate America, where we saw Medvedeva in person for the first time. This woman did 5 triple combinations in her long program run through. I've never seen anything.
Gracie out.
Yes, right in front of Gracie, she would just tack on a triple toe like nobody's business. And she's so gritty. She's my pick for this World Championships. But thank you so much for joining us, Christine. This was great. We can't wait to talk to you in Boston and to see you again. You'll have to come on one of our shows there as well.
Oh, I would love to do that. And just great to talk to you guys. Thanks so much for having me, and love your show. Thanks again, you guys.